All right, folks. Well, welcome to another edition of the Nebraska Way podcast, where we talk about a variety of different topics. And today we've got a great guest who really represents Nebraska. It's going to be Scott Frost, who obviously had a very successful career in football, both in high school, in college, and then, of course, as a head football coach. So we're going to be digging into all of that. Just want to say thanks to all of our viewers for tuning in again. And Coach Frost, thank you very much for being on the program today.
Good to be here. I appreciate you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for making the time. I know that you're actually in Colorado with your family, so I really appreciate you taking the extra time out of your busy schedule to be with us here today. So
you bet.
Typically the way we do this is that, we'll go through a brief bio. I'm guessing since most of the people that tune into this are from Nebraska, they probably have a good idea of that. But obviously you were born in Lincoln, grew up in Wood River, went to high school there, had a very successful career playing football there. I think you took the team to the playoffs 3 years out of the 4 that you were playing there, set all sorts of amazing statistics. I think you passed for over 6,800 yards and rushed for over 7,200 yards. Had 68 passing touchdowns or 69 passing touchdowns, 72 rushing touchdowns during your high school career. And then you went to go play for the Stanford Cardinal, right, in 93 and 94. And then transferred to Nebraska, redshirted your first year, and then played 96 and 97, obviously culminating in 97 with that national championship. I know the notes say shared national championship, but I know we really won that. That was all ours. That was not shared. It should not have been shared. And maybe actually one of the things we can talk about is just kind of the change in the playoff system and versus the way it used to be with the coaches poll and the writers poll. All right, so we got that. But then, of course, so you had a very successful career here. In fact, one of the things, you were the first player in Nebraska history and only the 10th in college football to both pass and rush for over 1,000 yards in a single season. So a hugely amazing accomplishment there. And then, of course, that led to your football career, and we want you to kind of walk a little bit more through that, but the very successful career at University of Central Florida, where you turned that team around and really got them into a winning program, that really fun team to watch. You may recall that your final year at UCF, that Nebraska actually didn't go to a bowl game that year. So you were kind of the bowl game for Nebraskans. I'm sure people have told you that before. And then, of course, coming here to Nebraska, where you took over the franchise here and have worked to really transform that team with your culture. And that's we want to talk a bunch about that as well. First season going 4-8, second season going 5-7. But a lot of those losses come against nationally ranked teams. I think you took the offense, when you took it over, we were ranked 87th nationally. And then when you took it over, you moved it up to 25th as far as the ranking for the offense. So again, demonstrating your great skills with regard to the offense. And then, of course, we had the pandemic season, which doesn't really count for much. But one of the things I appreciate about that is you were fighting for us to be able to play football games. And we can talk about Kevin James if that's not just a decision there too, maybe a little bit later in this, because I thought that was a very poor decision by the Big Ten not to allow us to play when other conferences like the SEC were doing it. And then obviously this year is going to be a big season. This is going to be really the first year where it's all your recruits. So we got a lot to cover in a very short period of time, but people don't want to listen to me talk anyway. So let's get into Scott. Start talking about, let's just jump into what was it growing up in Wood River. Tell us a little about your high school years.
Well, I went to high school in Wood River. I actually grew up kind of all over. Mom and Dad were both coaches. I was born in Lincoln when they were living in Crete. I think we were only there for a year. Went to Kansas City for a year, back to Lincoln for 3 or 4, then to O'Neill, Nebraska, then to Palestine, Texas, and East Texas, then to McCook, and then to Wood River before I went into high school. So I kind of lived in all parts of the state, and just for a minute in Texas and Kansas City. Loved being in Wood River. It was really a unique place to be, especially with Mom and Dad both being coaches and teachers at the school, and Mom even coaching football. Got to spend a lot of time around them, but I have a lot of fond memories about being there.
So was that really where you decided, seeing your parents and what they did as far as coaching, is that really how you got inspired to go into coaching?
Not to be honest, I didn't really want to coach for a long time, and it wasn't because of what I saw my parents do. I respected them and admired them, and I loved how I got to grow up being a coach's son. But being in the NFL kind of turned me off from coaching. I remember walking through the Jets facility and seeing one of the coaches at about 6:45 in the morning rolling up his inflatable mattress, and he was on the phone with his son and said, it was a Tuesday, and he said, "I'll see you on Sunday night." And I thought those guys were crazy for putting that much time in. It wasn't until I got to Tampa, I was around Mike Tomlin and Raheem Morris, and those guys were two of the best coaches I've ever had, and I love those two, and they kind of inspired me and talked me into being a coach.
Cool. So speaking of coaches, obviously one of the things that was, well, actually, before we get to the University of Nebraska, talk to me a little bit about Stanford. How did you choose to go there, and why did you choose ultimately to come to Nebraska?
I think I was like a lot of other 18-year-olds, and I see it now that I'm recruiting, that there's some mistakes you make as an 18-year-old. One of the mistakes I made was thinking maybe the grass was greener somewhere else rather than home. I think I thought I needed to play in a certain type of offensive scheme in order to have a chance to make the NFL. That's not true. The NFL finds you whether you're at Nebraska or Stanford or Northwest Missouri State. If you're a good enough player, the NFL finds you. And I made some of those mistakes and went out and thought that's what I wanted to try. It just didn't fit me very well personally. I wasn't very happy. Nebraska was winning and just got done winning the national championship in winter of '94. I actually flew home over Christmas and talked to Coach Osborne, and he wanted me to come and kind of visit. After that visit, I still wasn't quite sure, and I flew back out to California to start the next quarter out there. And once I got back, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to come home, and coming back to Nebraska is the best decision I made by far.
Oh, awesome. So let me ask you about that just a little bit. I got to tell you, so, and obviously I'm a little bit older than you, but when I was growing up, nobody said it specifically, but there was always kind of that idea that just what you said, the grass was greener, you had to go someplace else besides Nebraska to make your fame and fortune. And just to your point, it's not true. There's so much the state has to offer. Obviously, I was gone for about 10 years and I moved back here and raised my family here. But it really is seeing the great opportunities here in the state that I think we got to communicate out to our young people. How do you do that when you're talking to recruits in Nebraska?
It's funny when we get recruits that come into Nebraska, most people that come from out of state, almost every single one of them will sit on my couch at the end of the visit and say, "Man, coach, this is awesome. This is nothing like what I thought." They expect it to be a farm town with a football stadium in the middle of a cornfield and nothing fun to do. When they get to Lincoln and see what Lincoln's like, see what our facilities are like, meet the people and see what the people are like, they love it. And we got a great chance of getting every recruit that we get to come and see what Nebraska's really like and what Lincoln's really like.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Pete, that sometimes Nebraskans have a little bit of a complex maybe. You don't see it all the time because there's so much pride in the great state of Nebraska, but sometimes we think things are better other places or somebody from somewhere else might be smarter and have better ideas. And, man, you look at all the successful people from Nebraska, and I've lived in 13 states in my life, and there's good and bad to everywhere, but there's nothing like living in Nebraska, the people and just the way of life in Nebraska. Want to make sure, like you said, a lot of young people realize that and understand that, and we're going to get a lot of recruits to come to Nebraska because of that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Lincoln, you look at the Haymarket area, and just, I got to tell you, that is just a ton of fun. There's been so much development there. And then, of course, the world-class facilities at the University of Nebraska, which you're continuing to make investments in, right? You just broke ground on some new facilities there to make sure that the athletes that come to the University of Nebraska are going to have world-class facilities, right?
Absolutely. Appreciate a lot of people that donated to that and gave some of their own money so that we can stay out front. college football and college athletics are changing rapidly right now. I'm not sure when the dust settles, anybody knows exactly what it's going to look like with NIL rules and transfer rules and everything that's happening. But we got to try to make sure we're staying on the cutting edge of that in Nebraska, and certainly having new facilities is one part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, speaking of that, so you made the decision to come back to Nebraska, and you redshirted your first year, right? And then started playing for Coach Osborne. Tell me a little bit about playing for Coach Osborne. What was it about that drew you back, or what were the things that you took away from him? What did he do with regard to developing leadership? Just tell me about, like, what was that like?
I would say that Coach Osborne's leadership was as good as I've been around. I've been around a lot of people and coaches that kind of motivate through intimidation, and Coach Osborne was purely motivation through an healthy environment where he cared about the players and the players cared about him. It was so easy to be a player for him because everything was taken care of for you. All you had to do was show up and do the best that you could and be a good teammate. And, I came back into the program when it was in the middle of its best run ever. The culture was already built. I'm not sure a lot of things got up to Coach Osborne that were issues because it was taken care of in the locker room. But that culture was built over a period of time. There wasn't one of us in that locker room that wouldn't run through a wall for Coach because we knew that he had our best interests in mind and cared about us. And that's a real strong goal for any coach to emulate to build a program and a culture like that.
Yeah, one of the things I'd always heard about Coach Osborne is that he would really focus on the moms and say, "Hey, I'm going to take care of your son," and he did it. I mean, he lived out. He didn't just say that. I mean, that was what it was about. Is that kind of what your experience was?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. He remembers probably to this day everybody that played for him's name, their parents' names, where they're from. He's just got an unbelievable memory like that, which really endears him to you as a player. But he did a good job with the parents, and when he told them that he was going to take care of their kids, he did. And he even sometimes taking care of some kids that other people would have thrown away, some kids that got in trouble that he stood up for and backed and put his reputation at risk a little bit. So when he said he was going to take care of you and told parents he was going to protect the kids, he lived up to that.
Yeah, and sometimes he got criticized for that too. So it wasn't always easy being able to do that. Is that something that you've taken away as far as your coaching style, or what are some of the things from Coach Osborne that you are incorporating into how your leadership and coaching style is?
Well, I would say, Pete, there's a formula that wins at every university, and it's not always the same formula. How we won it at UCF isn't necessarily the exact same process that we have to follow to win at Nebraska. It's a different league. It's a different part of the country. It's a different recruiting area. There's a lot of differences. And, Coach Osborne had the formula figured out here. And it was a process of developing players better than anybody else in the country. Working hard in the weight room, walk-on program, a lot of things that made Nebraska what Nebraska was. And times have certainly changed a little bit, and that exact formula won't work, but there's a lot of pieces of what he did that I think are the keys to bringing us back to being the program that everybody wants again.
Yeah. And one of the other things too that, of course, we all remember those championships in the 90s, but to your point, he figured out the formula, but it took him a while to do it, right? I mean, he was coach for a long time. There were some disappointments, but the thing I always thought was great about Coach Osborne is he learned, right? He's like, oh, we got to make an adjustment. For example, we're going to go out and recruit more speed, that sort of thing. Do you think it's a problem with collegiate sports today that maybe we don't give people like a Coach Osborne the time to develop their teams and their processes? That obviously, at the end of the day, Coach Osborne really, really successful.
Yeah, I think that is a big problem. College sports have become a little bit like pro sports. It's win and win now. One of the reasons, honestly, we picked Nebraska when we could have picked some other schools to come back to as a coaching staff is we'd figure we'd have time to not just build it, but build it the right way. Not try to cut corners and do it quick, but build it hopefully for the long haul. Coach Osborne talks to me about that some. He was real close a couple times to considering going and doing something else because people were getting impatient and tough with him in Nebraska. Thank heavens they didn't do that, and he didn't decide to leave because of how it turned out. But that's the nature of our business, and we understand that. And we got work to do to make sure that we finish this job of getting it rebuilt.
Yeah, very good. So obviously, great success, national championship. So a couple of things I want to hit upon with those years. The Missouri game, I know you probably talked about it a ton. I know Matt Davison has because he loves talking about that.
Yeah. He's probably talking about it right now somewhere.
He probably is. So, but just what were your, any thoughts or emotions or anything any story that didn't get told in all the retelling, or one that you think just deserves to be retold just because it's so much fun about that game?
I've told it a couple of times now, but the Antlers are the group from University of Missouri that tries to really be rowdy at games, and it's kind of their fan support group. And somehow they had gotten my number the week of the Missouri game, so I was getting phone calls in the middle of the night, kind of prank calls in the middle of the night from these guys. One night that I was awake, I watched the movie North Dallas 40. And at the end of that movie, it's a semi-pro football team, and they scored to either win or tie, I can't remember, and then they missed the extra point. So everybody knows everything that happened, but when I threw that pass, first of all, we ran the play with 7 seconds left because we were convinced we'd have time to run another play if it was incomplete. So I threw the ball and saw Chevin kind of miss it and have it glance off his shoulder pads. And I looked straight up to the clock, and there was still 3 seconds on the clock, 2, 1. We should have had time for another play, and the clock operator let the clock run out. I looked back down and didn't know what happened and saw the referee running in with signal and touchdown. And their fans were storming the field. Our players were storming the field. All I could think about then was we were going to get a 15-yard penalty and miss the extra point, just like they did on North Dallas 40. So if you watch me after the play, I'm kind of like trying to shove everybody up from our sideline back off the field so we didn't get a 15-yard penalty and lose the game by a point.
Okay, that's a great story. That's a great story. Well, like I said, I can still remember where I was. I was in the apartment or the living room of my house watching that game. And so I just vividly remember that play and where I was when that happened. So anything else?
It's funny. It's like the Kennedy assassination or something for Nebraska sports fans.
Yeah, only
I
in
hear
a
the
good
stories
way.
all the time about where they were. I remember where I was for the space shuttle disaster and maybe a couple other things in my life specifically. And every Nebraska fan, it seems like they know exactly where they were when Matt got lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. And when Matt got lucky. So that season, so I want to go off and talk about something here just kind of tangentially. So what did you like better? Playoff system or the old system where you had the coaches and the writers would come up with their own system and, put out their polls? Which do you like better?
I definitely like the playoff system better. I think it had to get to that. I'm a purist, Pete. I love college football the way it was when I was growing up. I hate to see too many changes, but there's nothing we're going to do about it. That's the way that it's going, and we need to embrace it. I think 4 was too few, and then they're talking about 12. I think you got to be careful with college athletes, how many games you play and how deep the season goes, and those types of things. I'm surprised they're zooming right past the number 8 to get to 12 for some reason, but it's definitely fun for college football, and I think you can still have rewards at the end of the season and bowl games with those types of playoff games happening. And it was inevitable. It was going to happen sooner or later, so we might as well embrace it.
Yep. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I kind of like the fact that fans could argue who actually was number 1 in a season. I thought it made part of the game kind of special, but I think you're right. It was inevitable. It was going to go that direction. So tell me a little bit about your professional career and what lessons out of your professional career, what impacted you about your professional career? You already kind of hinted at it. that moved into coaching, and that the lessons you drew from that you're incorporating into your own coaching style now?
Well, I had a very, very average NFL career. I was able to last for 6 years. I got drafted to the Jets, played for a bunch of really successful coaches there. Was there 3 years, went to the Browns for one, the Packers for one, training camp with the 49ers, and then a little over a year in Tampa Bay to finish my career. And I was a little disappointed. I think I could have had a better career as a player, but looking back, I don't think I could have had a better career to prepare me to be a coach than how it worked out. And it all culminated being in Tampa Bay. Coach Gruden was our head coach, and Monty Kiffin, who was at Nebraska, was the coordinator. And I loved my time there, mostly because of Mike Tomlin was my DB coach, and Raheem Morris, who's been a head coach in the NFL, was my assistant DB coach. And I think those guys saw something in me and kind of pulled me aside quite often and talked to me about being a coach. And I mentioned the hours that I saw other coaches put in. Those guys didn't do that. They kind of did it the right way and were able to get the same work done without letting it really wreck their lives. They had a way better work-life balance and work-family balance. And being around those guys kind of lit the fire under me to go coach. And then I was out of football for about a year. And Raheem got the defensive coordinator job at Kansas State and needed a GA that could help him coach DBs. So called me, and that was my first job. But, if I hadn't ended up with those guys, if my career would have gone different and I hadn't played for those two guys, I'm not sure if I'd even started coaching.
Yeah, I think it's a great example of you've got to be open to the possibilities. You don't always know what's going to jump in front of you, but sometimes you got to take a risk and take advantage of the things that land in your lap. And generally when it lands in your lap, it's because somebody made a connection and is helping you out.
Absolutely.
So was there a particular story from the NFL or something like that that really kind of crystallizes your desire to go into coaching or your leadership style or anything like that?
No, most of my stories from the NFL either are embarrassing or the wrong kind of stories to tell on your podcast.
Right, this is being recorded. You want to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I made a living, mostly covering kicks. I got to play some defense and work my way up. It was a little frustrating, by the time I kind of figured it out, being a quarterback in college and going to the NFL and trying to play at that level as a defensive back. About the time I figured it out, I got hurt one time, tore my shoulder, my labrum in my shoulder, and dislocated my shoulder, and that kind of cost me a chance. And that level, if you don't kind of have, if you haven't made your mark by about year 4, for sure 5, you're too expensive to keep as a backup, so you kind of price yourself out of the league.
Yeah.
So I managed to stay in for 6 and had a great time. But again, just the experiences and the guys that I was around and able to learn from to become a coach, it was about as good as it could have gone.
Yeah. So I know you had several coaching gigs before you got the University of Central Florida gig. But what I'm really interested in is how you turn that around. But if there's something that leads up to that turning around, let us know about that. But you took over a program that I believe the previous season had not won a single game. They were like 0-12, right? And so you turned that around into very successful. Tell me about a little bit, if there was something leading up to that helped make that happen, or what you did when you walked into that program that allowed for such a remarkable turnaround in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I started out at K-State, like I said, went to Northern Iowa for 2 years and then to Oregon for 7 years, either as receiver coach or offensive coordinator. And kind of had my eyes on the UCF job, kind of heard it might come open, and I figured that was a job that we could go and have a really good chance of winning. Loved my time there. Great people, great university, great city to live in. I think that the big thing about the turnaround down there, they were 0-12 the year before we got there, but there was a lot of kids there. There was a lot of talent there already. and there was kids there that really loved football and wanted to be shown a better way uh, to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish.
So it was about,
they were hungry.
So it was about, so you had the talent there already. Was it about then changing the culture of the team and really the motivation for the players, or how I mean, because your turnaround is pretty remarkable there. And I get the having the talent part, but obviously they had the talent when they were 0-12 by and large. What did you do that changed the culture? What was different that you wanted to fix that obviously worked?
Well, Coach O'Leary had been there before I had, and he'd done a great job. Won a Fiesta Bowl. Um, he was a little bit more of a motivation through intimidation guy, and I think that had kind of gotten off the rails, if I'm being honest, the last year, where the players weren't having fun. I think the team kind of splintered a little bit. They had some good players and they wanted to be good. I think it was our staff coming in and showing them a different way. And, we loved the players loved us, taught them how to love each other, taught them a new way to practice and do things. And they were hungry for all that. We got the culture going pretty fast because the kids were anxious for that culture and that change. We added a few special pieces, with our first round corner and our quarterback and some really fast running backs, and did a good job hitting on a bunch of recruits the first year. And, we thought Peter would take 3 or 4 years to get it really turned around down there, and everything just kind of came together. And year 2 was special.
Yeah. Now, just out of curiosity, separate aside, did you know Joe Moglia? Had you ever run across him? Because he was a life skills coach at University of Nebraska for a little bit.
I met Joe and think the world of him and what he's accomplished, and what a unique story. In fact, we just went to visit. 4 of our coaches went to visit Coastal Carolina, and he didn't happen to be there, but I saw his office. So, man, what a special guy that is.
Yeah, Joe turned around Coastal Carolina. I saw a lot of parallels between what he did and what you did with regard to taking a team and turning it around pretty darn quickly. And I know Joe is big on culture. He's, one of his things, he's got one rule, which is be a man. And then, through the education process, he teaches the players what be a man is. I'm wondering, do you have something like that too, that you're like an overall philosophy with the kids that that you talked about at UCF, and, just that you talked about, getting them to love each other, and you loved them. Was that, to me, it seems like that's a much stronger bond. Intimidation, it sounds like a short-term strategy. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, we talk about not having a lot of rules. I love what he did, and I actually got to see the Be a Man stuff down there. I don't think you can hand out kids a 52-volume encyclopedia of all the rules and ways to do things and ways not to do them. We kind of say the same thing. It's everybody you come in contact with, be respectful to, and treat them the way that you'd want to be treated. We talk about taking care of the brother to your left and the brother to your right, and making sure that all your decisions are based on that more than yourself. We talk about being tough and disciplined on the field. I really like what Joe did, because a lot of that's encompassed in just being a man. At Nebraska, we just talk about day by day, doing all those things day by day. I think a lot of people now have heard the prayer that we say before the game, and that's a piece of that. But trying to get better day by day, and every single time you walk in the building, trying to have the best day you can, and being better than yesterday. So a lot of that stuff, if it's not real, if it doesn't mean something, can just end up being sloganeering and stuff that goes in one ear and out the other with kids. But at the end of the day, we're trying to help our kids not just be better football players, but be better people, and a lot of the lessons lean toward that.
Yeah, that is the thing. I think the kind of the charge to college football coaches is win games and develop fine young men, and you can't do one without doing the other.
You can, but I don't think for a long period of time. I think you can do a good job of helping people become better people, and maybe you don't have enough talent to win, or you can get the wrong kind of team with a lot of talent and win for a short amount of time. But the most fulfilling thing that we do is to help young guys leave school as as adults that have everything figured out and have a great life. And that's probably even better than winning.
Yeah, that's got to be really rewarding, right? And it gets
It
back
is.
to being about the people. So you're at UCF. You're obviously having a great, turnaround opportunity there. Nebraska comes knocking on your door. So what's that like? How did that process work out? Was it like, oh yeah, of course, or I really got to think about this, or how did that decision to come back to Nebraska come about?
It was an easy decision. I was real happy where I was. I didn't want to make the decision myself because it didn't just affect me. It affected my family and all the assistant coaches and our staff and their families. So we made the decision together. We had some other opportunities, and we talked about staying as an opportunity or going to the other places or picking Nebraska. At the end of the day, we chose Nebraska, and it wasn't easy. I'd been following Nebraska enough because I love it, and I'm an alumni, and I knew there was a lot of things that needed to be fixed. I knew it was pretty broken. I knew it was going to be a lot of hard work. And you got to remember, we had just spent 2 years putting in all that work to get one program fixed. And we didn't even really get to enjoy that after we got it fixed and went undefeated. We were on a plane the next day to Lincoln to start working to fix another one. And it's been challenging. I got to tell you, probably more challenging than the fix down in Orlando for some reasons. And it's definitely been hard work that it's kind of made me old for 3 years, but we're doing all the right things. We're making all the right decisions, and there's no question we're light years ahead of where we were when we walked in the door in Lincoln. That's all we can do. It's what we tell the players to do, is to get better day by day and do everything right so that you're better than you were the day before. And there's no question we've done that, and if we stick to that, the results will come.
So one of the things you've talked about as you've moved from different places, you talked about us, the team. It wasn't just about you coming on as the head coach. It was about your whole coaching staff, right? Talk to me a little bit about how you develop that team, that coaching team that you've got, and how that just came about over time, and what are you looking for in the folks that you have on your team? Just because, talk to me a little bit about the overall coaching staff here that makes it, what you do.
Well, bottom line, I want good people around me first, good character people, and number two, good teachers. And it's one of the best things I did when I got to Florida is I hired a lot of the right guys, and those guys took an 0-12 team to 13-0, and any staff that can do that's good enough to win anywhere. Wanted to give those guys a chance to come to Nebraska. We stayed largely intact as a staff for 3 years, and I do have some unbelievable teachers and really high character coaches on the team, and we get compliments from the recruits that come in all the time that they can tell the difference in the type of people that are in the building. So I can't say enough about our staff from that standpoint. And these guys are in the trenches with me, fighting every day like my brothers.
So now you mentioned character being important there. What about when you're looking at recruits too? Is that something that you're asking your scouts to look for? Is that good character guy on the team?
Absolutely. We can't have a bunch of choir boys and think you're going to win in a physical sport like football. But we want guys with this, not just good players. We want good people too, and good people win football games. And it's mostly not somebody that's not rough around the edges and enjoys a physical sport, but somebody that's going to put team ahead of themselves. Be reliable and be there when he's supposed to be. And it's an inexact science. The NFL goes to combine and they make guys take all these personality tests and all these things. And they get to select players, not recruit players. So right. We're trying to evaluate players when they come into town, just like they're trying to evaluate us as a university. And there's times when we see somebody we just don't think would be a fit, or somebody for personality reasons that we don't want, that we thought we did. There's some other times there's somebody we're kind of on the fence about that we love as an individual and have faith that he's going to do whatever he has to be great. So there's no question we look for character, and it's an inexact science, but I think we've done a really good job. I love the team we have right now and the players on it.
Yeah, great. So when you're talking to recruits, what's like the one or two biggest points that you want to get across and make to them as far as making that decision to pick Nebraska?
Man, that'd be a quick answer. We show them everything. And I guess if I was going to tell them one reason to pick Nebraska, it's the people. I think Nebraska's asset is the best asset is the people here. The fans, the people that they'll be around in the building. Nebraska is an unbelievable place to come and really try to max yourself out. And I tell almost all the recruits that at the end of the day, kids pick schools for a lot of different reasons. To me, the best reason you can pick a school is the school that you think at the end of your 4 years of school, you're going to be the best version of yourself you can possibly be. At the end of that 4 years, you're going to get your shot at the NFL, and you better be ready. And whenever football's over, you're going to get a shot at life, and you better be ready.
Yeah.
So which school is going to develop you into the best that you can possibly be is the best reason to make a choice like that.
So do you think recruits, okay, and I'm going to kind of draw the analogy of like buying a car. Like a lot of people want to think when they're buying a car, they're looking at gas mileage and maintenance and reliability and safety and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, they generally make a pick of a car that they just feels right? They like the look of it. They like how they look in it. Do you think when recruits are looking at schools, it's a lot of the same thing? They may want to look at some of the kind of the rational points, but it's going to be that feel for the organization that is going to help them make the decision to pick it or not?
Yeah, I think most of the time it probably does come down to feel. I've seen kids pick schools because of uniforms. I've seen kids pick schools because they met a girl on their recruiting trip. Every kid's different, and they're going to pick schools for different reasons. But I think probably the number one is just where they feel comfortable and kind of like a car, like you said.
Yeah. How much role do the parents have when they're picking a school? Like, are the parents heavily involved, or does it matter? I mean, is it different?
Different amounts. There's some where you can tell the parents are in charge, and others where they are completely hands off and letting the kid make the decision, and all levels in between. And I will tell you this: you mentioned it with Coach Osborne. If mom and dad feel comfortable sending their son to some people that they know are going to take care of them, you got a lot better chance.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so now you're going into your fourth year. These will be, the entire team now will be all your recruits. What, set the expectation for us as fans. What are you thinking about for this year with regard to how the recruiting's going along, the team's going along, or just anything about like your leadership style and how you think that that's making an impact on team in ways that maybe fans in the stands aren't going to see, but are definitely there behind the scenes, as far as like your imprint on this now?
Well, we still have a few that weren't my recruits, but those guys are awesome. JoJo Doman, Ben Stilley, Austin Allen, some of the veterans on our team were still guys that were here when we got here. The best thing I can say about the team right now is when I walk into the building every day, there's not one guy I don't love seeing and want to spend time with. And it just hadn't been that way for the first couple years for sure, and first 3 years. And where that team is right now compared to where it was is fun to see. There's a lot of things I don't have to dress anymore because the leadership on our team takes care of it. I think we're a lot more talented team. We really just need to catch some momentum and get some confidence, and I think this team can accomplish about anything it wants to.
Yeah. And of course, being in the Big Ten, you've always got tough schedules. I mean, you look at over the last few years and how many ranked teams you've had to play and how many of those teams have ended up, in the top 15 at the end of the season. You've played some tough games. And like the Ohio State game where we almost beat them, that was a shocker, I think, for them. I think it just shows that you've got the opportunity to be able to beat anybody we come up against.
Yep, happens again this year. I think we're going to have the hardest schedule in the Big Ten again this year, and one of the hardest in the country.
Hey, so
Nobody
Scott,
said
let me
this
ask
was
you,
going to be easy.
are they hazing us? Seriously, I feel like we're being hazed here. Like Nebraska came in, kind of the new one. We made a little bit of trouble last year. Are we being hazed?
I don't really want to comment, except I think last year's schedule when it came out probably was a reflection of how hard we fought for football. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Um, it does seem like we land with the toughest road a lot of times, and we have it again this year. But like I said, nobody says it's going to be easy. So if we go out and get it done and earn it, we're going to deserve it. And it's really a fine line in this league. Being in this league for 3 years, you learn if you can just be a little better, play a little cleaner, take care of the ball a little better. Shoot, there's 8 more games in 3 years at least that we could have won if we did those things a little better. So we've been real close to getting over the top in a lot of those games, and we need to find a way to do it.
Yeah, I think in that one year we lost to Ohio State by 5 points, Northwestern by 3 points. I mean, it was just real heartbreakers as far as we were so close on those. So
We've had too many of those, and our kids are tired of having those. Yep.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the pandemic last year. What was it like as a coach trying to keep the team together going through the pandemic? Obviously, there was a lot of uncertainty. I, as a fan, was frustrated. Well, as a fan and as a governor, was frustrated that the Big Ten wasn't allowing games to be played when you look at other conferences and seeing them successfully playing games and really, no impact being happened there. But just talk a little bit about what your experience like going through the pandemic was, because that was something that, again, nobody's done in a century in this country. So it was a unique time at Nebraska.
It was unique. That we tried to make all the decisions that were best for our kids' health and safety first, and for the state. It was rough. We started spring ball. We were in our second spring practice when we got canceled. So I had to call the kids up after our second spring practice and tell them we're sending them home. We had kind of seen that coming a little bit. I think we did a really good job of getting our kids back early on and doing it in a safe manner, and really kind of had a formula figured out with the help of University of Nebraska Medical Center and people up there. And then, I did some things during that year that were decisions that at the time were probably the best decisions. Looking back, we probably would have handled things a little different. So it was a challenging year and trying year. I will say at the end of the day, Pete, I think having that year is and getting to play last year is really going to help us this year and going forward.
Yeah. So obviously it was tough to get through. One of the things I'll tell you I appreciated about President Carter is that early on he said, hey, we're going to have, set the line. He set the tone, I think, for the university, saying we're going to have kids in classrooms in the fall. And I think that was key. Did you feel like that also helped out the football team?
I did. I appreciate our leadership too. Appreciate you. Appreciate Ted. Appreciate Ronnie. We want to do what's best for the kids at every turn. And man, it's such a hot button topic. There's people that feel so strongly about both sides, almost every issue, especially the COVID issue. But I really appreciate that leadership, and we fought to play because we thought it was the right thing to do. And I'm glad we had conformity in our leadership to make those moves.
Yeah. It was great to be able to see the team. And I got to tell you, I know that people were just dying by that point to have something that seemed to be more normal. And I think it was a huge boost to everybody's morale to be able to see college football being played. I know it was, for me personally, it was great to see college football being played. And then
it was. We needed it, and I think it's pretty clear now the decision to try and cancel was probably the wrong decision. It certainly played out that way. Luckily, we got back to the right decision. But every kid that played football last year ended up okay, and it was it was great experience for those kids to play. And I think, like you said, the country and people needed it and needed to be able to see it. And I'm glad we got to the point we were able to do it.
Yeah, me too. And now, of course, this year we had the spring game. 36,000 people showed up for that. That was awesome. Garth Brooks is going to be having a concert here in August, 90,000 people. And of course, we're expecting to have full stadiums for the fall football season here. How much does that mean for the team to be able to play in front of those fans?
Oh, it's huge. It was so strange being in there without fans. And it's weird. I think home games actually became, instead of an advantage, maybe a disadvantage, because it felt so funny in our stadium without fans in there. We got such passionate fans, and game day experience in Lincoln is so special that walking into that stadium and seeing a few cardboard cutouts was almost depressing. Yeah. And I can't wait to get them back. I can't wait to go see Garth and see the stadium full again. And can't wait to get back in Memorial Stadium. Glad we got our schedule changed so we have 2 early games in September at home that fans can come to. And I'm excited to walk that tunnel walk again with people in the building.
Yeah, well, and again, as a fan, I'm excited to have it too, to be able to be back in the stadium and be able to welcome the Huskers back onto the field and all that. So it's going to be exciting. Let me switch gears on you a little bit. You mentioned kind of the beginning of this, name, image, likeness. What is, give me your best speculation, because I know nobody knows. But again, I would say the University of Nebraska is being a leader on this. We got companies like Open Doors that are helping those athletes. But, how do you think this is all going to play out? Where is this going to go?
I don't know where it'll end up. I know we're positioned well to take advantage of NIL and let it help us. We do need people to get involved. We need people to support our team by giving opportunities to our players, and not just on the football team, but the basketball team and the volleyball team. And I know because of Nebraska's fan base and the passion for the sport that's going to happen. This is going to change college football. It's going to change amateur athletics. We'll see how far and how fast that goes. But the landscape's going to change, and I'm not sure I'm 100% in favor of it. But as long as it's happening, we need to try to do it as well as anybody else in the country.
Yeah, maybe it's kind of like going to the playoff system. I kind of like the old system better, but this was probably inevitable where the direction was going. I mean, we obviously had legislation in our own unicameral on it, but it wasn't just us, right? This was being talked about across the country. So on the one hand, I think about, okay, Nebraska, kind of a small state, maybe it's a disadvantage on name, image, likeness. On the other hand, we've got as you pointed out, such a strong fan base, which is national. It's a national fan base. Does that tend to balance out that we can be competitive with some of those other bigger schools? Like maybe a UCLA or one of those Florida teams where they've got bigger populations, but maybe they also have more athletes, and so maybe there's more chance you get lost in the crowd.
No, I think we're actually going to be one of the best with it. Some of those schools that you mentioned, they don't really care about football except on Saturdays in the fall. There's pro teams everywhere. There's other college teams. There's other people to get behind as a fan, to put your money behind. And Nebraska is so unique, and there's no Nebraska State, and there's no pro team in our state. So I think probably the good measure is media marketing dollars and revenue from that. And we're always in the top 5 in the country for that. So I think Nebraska is going to be uniquely positioned to do well with this. And I think our players are going to do extremely well with this. I'm just not sure everybody's going to like where college football and college sports land at the end of this. And I think there's going to be some players making some good money, but I think it's going to change a lot of things. And I'm not sure a lot of people are going to be happy with where it ends up. But like I said, if we're going down this road, we're going to try to do it as well as we can. Yeah.
And I think it's going to create additional coaching challenges for you. I mean, I can certainly imagine a scenario where you have some players who are, as you mentioned, getting good money out of their name, image, likeness, and maybe other players not. And how does that all balance out if you got maybe one of your linemen who's maybe not making so much money, but is that going to demotivate him when he's supposed to be blocking for your running back? I don't know. I mean, you can imagine all sorts of scenarios that are going to present coaching challenges for your team. And I think that what that will do is the best coaching teams will be the ones that come out on top.
It is going to make challenges. We talked about that. There's challenges for the kids if they start making money, not to make bad decisions, not to spend it in the wrong places. I'm not sure how many of our kids understand they need to withhold money for taxes and not have IRS problems.
Right.
There's going to be street agents trying to get a hold of our kids, and bad deals and good deals, and people grabbing at them 24/7. These kids want to make the money, and it's going to distract them from football to some degree. It's probably going to distract them from their academics to some degree too, if they're going out and trying to get all these things done. Not to mention the combination of NIL with one-time free transfer and the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Because if a really good player anywhere isn't making as much money as he thinks, he can go somewhere else and be eligible immediately, and it's going to be like free agency in college sports. So, again, I don't know how all these things are going to go, but we're starting to identify some of these potential issues and trying to prepare ourselves to be ready for them.
Yeah, I mean, it really is going to, again, the life skills coaching, which UNL already does, it's going to make that even more important to help develop some of these skills in kids pretty quickly. I mean, pretty fast. They're going to have to become adults, unfortunately.
Yeah, but there's only so much time in a day for these kids to be able to do some of these things, and there was a purity and a beauty to being able to be a college kid, and I think that's kind of dead now.
Kind of lost
these
that,
kids
yeah.
are going to have to grow up and be businessmen right away. So, changing landscape, and we got to do our best.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're running up against the end of our hour here. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we didn't talk about, or anything else that you want to highlight with regard to what the program's got going on, or anything about the season or anything like that?
No, I'm just excited. Just ask fans to come and show up like they had been before, and get behind this team. We got a special group of guys right now. It's the best I've felt about our team by far. We'll make a plug. We're working on some things to be able to create opportunities for not just our players, but student athletes in Nebraska and NIL. And we need the state of Nebraska behind that. So our guys are doing as well as anybody anywhere. And just more support, and really excited to get this thing on track so we can get everybody on the same page and move in the same direction. And can't wait to get started this year.
All right, great. So how can people follow you? What's the best way for you to get your message out to people who maybe haven't seen this, this is the first time they've seen the podcast, and they want to know what the best way to follow Scott Frost is?
I'm not really a social media guy, but I got a Twitter. It's Coach_Frost. And
do they give you the password? Do
should...
they give you the password for your Twitter account?
Yeah. The reason there's never anything on there is because I'm the one that runs it. A lot of coaches have somebody else doing it, but I don't really trust anybody else. So I retweet a thing or two here and there, and otherwise, I was always taught amateurs advertise, and real guys just go out and get the work done. And I understand that's the way of the world, but Coach_Frost, and I'll try to do a better job of being out on social media.
Yeah, I'm actually obviously on social media, but they don't give me the passwords. So,
yeah, I understand.
Avoids a lot of problems that way. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Nebraska Way. Again, please follow us along on Facebook, Twitter, all those sort of things at Governor Ricketts. There's a lot of great content out there, but obviously with Coach Frost here and the season coming up, we got 50 days before football season at the time of this recording. So I know a lot of fans are very excited about the opportunities that are coming up here. And I, for one, am just excited to have all the fans in the stadium to see a season where we can forget about some of the pandemic stuff and just get back to playing college football.
Me too. Sure appreciate you having me on. I'm proud to be in Nebraska, proud to be a Nebraskan, and proud of what Nebraska stands for. So appreciate you having me, Pete.
All right. Thanks a lot, Scott. You have a good one.
You too.
Paid for by Pete Ricketts for Governor, 1610 N Street, Suite 100, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68508.